Mario.
Mario, dude.
Mario!
Mario has been there my entire life. I remember renting the original NES for Christmas when I was a kid, and barely getting through the first few levels of the original game, getting an N64 a few years later and crawling my way through those levels. And it's a franchise that I still love today. Some of the games are kinda hit or miss, but I'm still excited when something new is announced. The Mario movie that came out a couple years ago was okay. I'd take that over the 90s movie any day. But while scrolling through the 43 mandatory streaming apps you need to watch anything these days, I came across the Super Mario Super Show. Somehow, I'd never seen any of this show. So coming across the full series on Amazon Prime, I thought I'd watch an episode. And then I watched another. And then I watched every episode of Super Mario Bros. Super Show. So the show came out in 1989 after Super Mario Bros. 2, and the show takes a lot of its creative liberties from that game. You've got the backwards color scheme of the blue shirt and red, or green for Luigi overalls. You've got the characters from those games, like Birdo and Lakitu. And instead of Bowser, we have the Koopa King. It gets a little complicated here, but Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually Super Mario Bros. 3 because Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels is actually Super Mario Bros. 2, and Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic, which Nintendo adapted to become the Super Mario Bros. 2 that Western audiences are familiar with. And because of this, we don't have the modern version of Bowser. Instead, we have this weird amalgamation of Bowser and Super Mario 2's Wart. Now at this point, we didn't have the hundreds of games or various media based around Mario that we have today, and because there wasn't any reference material to go off of, the writers and voice actors had to create their own versions of these characters and the voices to go along with them. Instead of the iconic Mario,
It's me, Mario.
or Luigi, we get these.
Mamma mia! Oh, if you want to, you can even go bowling with us.
And I think the entirety of these characters can be summed up as Italian. In fact, more or less, that's the entire show. Two brothers who are plumbers and are Italian.
This baby has cut through some pretty tough pieces.
The majority of the jokes in the cartoon are based around either one of those two things and very little else. Now the show itself is divided up into several segments. An intro and outro consisting of live-action Mario and Luigi who each episode are trying to exist as plumbers in Brooklyn.
With their Mario Brothers clog cleaner.
There's a ton of guest cameos from popular 80s stars. We get Cyndi Lauper, Vanna White, Magic Johnson, and I'm reminded of how popular wrestling was in the 80s and 90s because we also have guest appearances from Sergeant Slaughter and Roddy Piper. As far as the plots of the live-action segments, they're pretty lackluster. I mean, they don't really have a ton of time to flesh things out, but the majority of them are just based around the brothers living together. Seemingly random plot lines like Luigi growing vegetables all over his body, vampires, Frankensteins, helping this kid.
Life is tough when you don't have any parents to love and take care of you.
Or this kid.
I'm running away from home.
There's one episode where Luigi gets upset at Mario's mess and decides to separate the apartment with a line of tape, and has literally every sitcom done this at this point? Didn't Wednesday do this? And that was, what, like 2022? Something that stood out to me in the live action stuff is that the characters' personalities didn't exactly seem right. Mario's kind of a dope, and Luigi can sometimes be a bit of an asshole.
You forget about it.
Even in the cartoon version, they already had the heroic versus fearful dynamic going.
Luigi, are you a man or a mouse? Neither. I'm a chicken to the sea.
So I'm not sure why this wasn't given the same attention in the live action segments. Another thing we get is the reveal that they do in fact share the surname Mario.
No, it's just Mario and Luigi. There are no last names.
Making them Mario Mario and Luigi Mario respectively.
This is Luigi Mario.
And aside from the celebrity guest appearances, there aren't really any other characters except for a few puppets and Pee-wee's Playhouse style set pieces. At some point in syndication, the network got tired of these live-action segments, and a lot of them were replaced by the extreme Club Mario.
Rollerblade skates are the only skates made that can take what we're doing to them.
Featuring Co-MC and Tommy Treehugger. These are the quintessential 90s Kids Zone after-school segments, and a lot of what I remember watching as a kid was programming like this shoved in between what you were trying to watch while your pizza bagels heated up in the microwave oven. Unfortunately, a lot of these were removed by the network once they released the series on home video, and Amazon only really has one episode that featured any of these segments. But after watching the one that was featured, I think that was more than enough. Now, the live action stuff is kind of fun, it's okay, it never really goes anywhere. So the meat of the show comes from the animated sections. In the animated portions, we do get the dynamic that we have now, where Mario is a brave hero and Luigi is a bit of a coward.
What's the matter, Luigi? You scared?
But we also get something that part of me wishes would come back. Italian Toad.
We can to get inside.
This is one of the most jarring things for me. Obviously, Mario and Luigi are Italian, so the change in their voices from what we're used to is just a bit of a stretch. But having Toad put on this Joe Pesci-esque voice was amazing, and I wish we could have a modern version of that. Speaking of Toad, in the very first episode, we also get the reveal that his mushroom head is actually just a mushroom hat, and he uses it to parachute to safety, revealing his actual head. Another thing that I wish would have stuck around through the series. As far as their plots go, the series goes the same way that a lot of longer running animated series go, and instead of creating storylines and situations within the world of Mario Bros, they just opt to parody already existing movies and classic stories. So you end up with Mario and the gang shifting through this sort of multiverse throughout the episodes. For me, the weaker episodes were always the fables and older tales like Jack and the Beanstalk, Hercules. My favorites always ended up being the more current movie parodies. I mean, you've got James Bond, Godzilla, Frankenstein, Mad Max, and even Star Wars.
May the pasta be with you.
And I mean, they're all pretty fun, but there's definitely something so awesome about watching Mario pilot a mech or wield a lightsaber. I definitely would have liked to see some storylines based around saving the actual Mushroom Kingdom instead of just past the land or the North Pole or wherever their parody forces them to go. As I mentioned earlier, we also have this King Koopa amalgamation of Bowser and Wart, but I mean, pretty quickly you ignore any design differences and just kind of accept who he is. I'm still not entirely sure why he's doing what he's doing. In the intro of the show, it shows him trying to catch Peach, which would make sense considering every single game is Mario trying to save her. But a lot of the episodes start with Peach already with Mario and Luigi, and a lot of the time their goal is just to stop King Koopa from doing something bad, like fucking bombing Santa Claus.
I'm off to the North Pole to drop those bombs on Santa's workshop.
Again, a lot of the jokes come from either them being plumbers or Italian food, but the other joke is changing words to Koopa. And I mean, sure, it works a few times, but there's a lot of the time where it's just changing words to Koopa for the sake of it.
Coupon, you've cooped your last coop.
But for as fun as the animated portions were and the show altogether, there were a handful of things that stood out to me. And we'll get to those things right after we watch these scenes from the next episode of Legend of Zelda.
You called for a hero, princess?
Yes, but I guess you'll have to do.
Ow! Ow! My toes! Ah! Sorry. Ah! Ooh! Whoa! Ropes! Phew! And this. My kind of girl, completely crazy.
Nice job, hero.
Hey, excuse me. Excuse me, princess. Excuse me, princess. Excuse me. Excuse me. Well, excuse me, princess. Kiss? Excuse me, princess.
Daddy!
This always happens.
I have you now.
Link will rescue me. He always does. It's his job.
My future bride.
What? If you think I'm going to marry you, pig face, you're...
Does anyone here know of any reason why these two should not be wed?
Excuse me, princess. That's how I like to start a morning.
So that's also a thing. Every episode they throw in a clip from that week's Legend of Zelda cartoon. It's a fun little break from things, but a weird version of Link. I'm glad they never fully voiced him in the series and dropped his catchphrase. Anyways, that should probably be its own video. So, you know, it's a fun time. It's Coop this and past that. But randomly in the show, you encounter these jokes or characters that really stand out. There's a handful of jokes centered around feet, like King Koopa forcing his henchmen to lick his feet.
I want my feet licked.
Aside from that, there are definitely a few things that I don't think would really pass today. Now, I get it. It's 1989 and culturally America is in a different place, but Super Show managed to use just about every racial stereotype you could imagine. We've got Indian characters.
This is a genuine Persian carpet.
Asian characters.
Nothing like a good workout.
Native American characters.
Name Brando, mean fastest moccasins in West.
Little people. The Irish. I mean, they're never really the entire butt of a joke, but quite often at best a harmful stereotype. But it's kind of a reminder of how these sort of things have evolved over time. I'm sure Super Show wasn't alone in having stereotypes like this in their cartoon, and it would be years before things like this start getting phased out of scripts.
The place where the ghosts eat the most.
I think the most upset I got at this show was the Elvis or Elvin Parsley episode. They spend part of the episode following his blue suede shoes back to his frozen body, and when they put the shoes on him to thaw him out and he starts talking, it's not even an Elvis impersonation. It's a fucking James Brown impression. Not only did the writers not care about maintaining some continuity in how the characters acted between the live action and the animated portions of the show, they also didn't care about whether or not their parody characters were accurate. I can understand smudging the plot of some of the episodes to work in a unique way for the show, but how hard is it to find an Elvis impersonator? He's literally the most impersonated person in the world. All in all, it was a pretty fun show to binge the entirety of. Does it drag a bit at times? Yeah, I mean, it's a kid's show from 35 years ago, of course it does. And from what I've seen of the Super Mario Bros. 3 cartoon and the Super Mario World cartoon, they do seem to focus a little bit more on the actual world and lore of the games, as opposed to just parody after parody of popular movies. With Charles Martinet ending his time as the voice of Mario and Luigi, I have to wonder if we could ever see these characters voiced differently again, who act a little different, maybe with a slight visual redesign, or if the other characters could return to the franchise with some slight changes as well. Nintendo, please bring back Joe Pesci Toad.
Nice go!